Thank you all for joining us today for our webinar entitled Validate Salesforce and Move Your GxP Processes to the Cloud. My name is Kim Hutchings, and I'm VP of Alliances with USDM, and I'm very pleased to have one of our best partners, Salesforce, with us today. We're really excited to be sharing our experience around qualifying Salesforce and validating apps on the Salesforce AppExchange. As many of you know or will learn today, the possibilities really are endless for moving your business processes onto the platform once the compliance piece has been handled and you have a process for managing compliance in the cloud. First, I'd like to introduce our presenters today. So David Blewett is the VP of our Cloud Compliance Practice. He and his team here at USDM are helping companies move from on-premise solutions to the cloud. And he's an expert in ensuring that you have that compliance piece with these cloud technologies. He has over 8 years of cloud compliance experience specifically and over 20 years of experience with computer system validation. Also with us today is Pali Asrani. She is the Global Life Science Marketing Leader at Salesforce. For over 4 years, she's been helping life science companies move their business processes to the Salesforce platform, providing increased efficiencies, cost savings, and overall better run businesses in the cloud. I'm going to take just a minute for those of you who aren't familiar with USDM, or perhaps this is your first webinar. We work exclusively in the life sciences and healthcare industries. We're a global leader in providing IT quality and regulatory solutions in this space. For the past few years, we've been helping companies move from on-premise solutions to cloud-based technologies, with an emphasis on ensuring that FDA and other global regulations, including 21 CFR Part 11, can be met with these cloud systems. Today you'll be hearing specifically about our cloud practice, but if you look on the slide on the right-hand side, I do want to mention that we have specialized teams in really all of those areas where you need to be concerned about compliance, whether it be clinical or lab, ERP, content management, and have great subject matter expertise in important regulations including UDI, serialization, and DSCSA. I'm going to go through just a couple of logistics. We try to keep our webinars about 30 minutes in duration, so we'll have some time afterwards for questions. If you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to post those in the chat area over on the left-hand side. The webinar will be recorded, and you can see that later or share that with your friends on our website. And we'll have some follow-up discussions on various social media pages. With that, I'm going to turn it over to David to get started.
Okay, thanks, Kim. So today we're going to talk about compliance in the cloud. Is it really a new concept? Has it been around a long time? We're going to give a quick overview of Salesforce and the security and how organizations are using Salesforce for many different GxP applications to take advantage of the power that it offers. We're also going to talk about how to overcome the challenges that cloud compliance brings. It's with the difference between native hosted systems and cloud systems. Going to talk a little bit quickly about the cost-effective method that we have for validating Salesforce and accelerating that whole process. And I'm going to give you a quick validation case study of one of the systems that I personally validated on the Salesforce platform. And then, of course, at the end we'll have that live Q&A session. So compliance in the cloud, is it really a new concept? The usage of cloud platform technologies within life sciences companies, it's not generally considered to be a new concept, but it hasn't been around that long. So people are still a bit unfamiliar. So historically, adaptation within life sciences companies has typically been limited to non-GxP functionality, such as sales calling and scheduling and financial services, things like that. But times are changing, and numerous medium to life sciences companies are paving the way to showing that the huge potential and the power of Salesforce can be used to perform a multitude of GxP processes. And they're all intertwined, they're all qualified, they're all validated, and they're all regulatory compliant. So it's becoming the norm and not the exception. So with only a small adaptation, the best practice validation methodologies like GAMP5 that have been tried and tested for many years, I'm sure many of you are familiar with that, they're now being used more and more life sciences companies to qualify and validate and to maintain cloud platforms and the accompanying GxP applications that sit on top of those. And we'll discuss those in a bit more detail later. But the shift of some of the compliance effort to your suppliers is already an accepted approach where it's relevant and performed according to regulatory expectations. So both legacy and cloud platforms and those being considered for new or upgraded implementations at life sciences companies can now be taken the extra step to take advantage of the power that it gives and the configurability it has. And of course be shown to be compliant with FDA regulations as they're applicable to your company. Now with that, the moving to the cloud, the FDA themselves are actually recognizing the power of the cloud and the necessity of it, and they're leveraging it for their big data initiatives to enable storage and analysis and sharing of huge data sets to upgrade their technology platforms in line with current and future requirements. And only with the cloud are these initiatives possible for them to do that. There's too much data to do it any other way nowadays. So what are the benefits of cloud computing? We're looking at secure storage and established data segregation, of course, and Polly will talk a bit more about that shortly. You can utilize mobile applications, either real time or offline and then synced. Of course, it's hugely scalable. You get the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week support, and it uses already inherent on the platform is best practice methodology. So you're getting that, and all that builds up to a low total cost of ownership. You don't have to pay for hosted systems. You don't have to pay for data centers, the staffing there, and maintaining all that. So you get that whole total low cost of ownership, and you pay as you use, which is really a nice benefit and one of the biggest things that people want. Now I'm going to quickly hand you over to Polly, and she's going to talk a little bit about secure cloud computing and trust in regulated industries.
Great.
Polly,
thank you, David. Thanks, and I just want to touch off where David left off and just talk about some of our companies that are, as David put it, seeing the light and moving towards cloud computing. We have some of the largest companies in the world that are recognizing the benefits of cloud computing and really standardizing on Salesforce. So they're choosing Salesforce for a number of reasons, but one of those is because of a couple of those are performance and security, so that they at the end of the day can focus on delivering value to patients and physicians. So as you can see on this slide, we have customers across a variety of regulated industries. So the security needs of one customer or industry truly benefit all. And of course, here we're focused on the life sciences space. So we get a lot of questions about CFR 21 Part 11 compliance. And ultimately, the customers that you see there need to trust our platform to develop regulated apps on Salesforce. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Trust is our #1 value at Salesforce, and there's nothing that's more important than protecting the security and privacy of customer data. You saw some of the big brands and government agencies that are building on it, so it's extremely important for us in developing partnerships across all of our customers. And in order to deliver really available, secure, and high-performance service, it really requires a trusted, strong architecture at the bottom and strong infrastructure. So we're very transparent on the cloud infrastructure and how we safeguard customer data, and also some of the certifications that we have. It's all available on trust.salesforce.com if you want to get more details on other types of certifications we have on the platform. Salesforce hosts customer data in highly secure data centers. Some of you know that. That we have a variety of different security controls. Some of those include facility security, network security, application security, and the security requirements are constantly being tested. So for example, there's third-party application vulnerability assessments that are performed 3 times a year, and network assessments that are performed quarterly. So they're constantly being vetted and improved upon based on what we hear back from our customers. And those Salesforce, the data centers have several certifications, and data in transit is always encrypted. We really, in addition to this, seek to work with our customers to offer a broad set of tools to help them address compliance like CFR 21. And just as a few examples, Salesforce meets HIPAA compliance requirements and signs BAAs for customers that are storing PHI data. Another thing that we've done for several customers is we provided audit reports and certifications that are available upon request under NDA. So let's get more into the FDA CFR Part 11. We know as life science companies there's a number of challenges that life science companies face, not only the GxP regulations and operations, but also conforming to Part 11 requirements. Force.com has features that help enable companies to achieve and maintain compliance, and a lot of these details on the features are in our white paper on CFR 21 Part 11, and I encourage you to reach out to your account AE so you can get more details on that and really see the full spectrum of features there. But we have a number of customers that are life science customers that are spinning up validated solutions. You may have heard, some of you may have been on our call that we hosted about a month ago with J&J speaking about their validated call center and just talking about how they were able to create a medical info call center and create it in a validated way. So like J&J, there's many customers that are configuring and applying Force.com features to internal systems and processes. And all of our customers are creating their own documentation and processes to comply with CFR 21 Part 11. And some of them are choosing to work with our great compliance partners like USDM. So with that, I want to pass it back to David, who's going to talk a little bit more about the ecosystem and USDM and where they fit into compliance.
All right, thanks, Polly. So the partners shown here enhance the entire Salesforce solution. As you can see around the cloud, and the collaboration is really what we're trying to drive onto here. Here at USDM, of course, we provide validation accelerators, automation tools, and full governance consulting services specific to the life sciences industry. We have partners with OpenQ, provides regulated presentation management for mobile clients and compliance tools with chatter collaboration. Concur, providing services for Sunshine Act reporting. DocuSign, they have a great solution for customers that can be bolted onto many workflows and enhance those by adding the e-signature capabilities, including the new Part 11 compliant e-signature solution. 123 Compliance enables Part 11 compliance solutions on Force.com with cloud-based solutions designed specifically for the needs of life sciences industry. And then finally, ServiceMax provides field service management, relates to work orders, warranty entitlements, inventory and parts logistics, scheduling and workforce optimization, of course, mobile. So all of this put together gives you that huge and really configurable solution to a lot of the life sciences needs, on top of any other specific customizations you want to make. How do we overcome the challenges of cloud compliance? The establishment of a robust and a meaningful, usable SLA will enable you to ensure that your supplier, in this case Salesforce.com, has in place all the necessary procedures and people and technology to deliver and maintain a compliant system. As just discussed by Polly, you should be looking to see fully documented infrastructure qualification evidence, system administration procedures, backup and recovery processes, system redundancies, system security policies, encryption policies, communications processes and schedules. So a lot of stuff around the SLA that you need to establish, and that gives you that really robust and meaningful document that you can rely on. Remember that the compliance requirements for IT suppliers, including cloud systems providers, is derived from several regulations and requirements. So, for example, Part 820, the QSR, prescribes supplier quality audits have to be conducted. 820.5 prescribes evaluation and control and monitoring of all suppliers as well, providing purchase materials and so on. So there's a lot of regulations that you have to adhere to, and having that robust and meaningful SLA, and then of course performing those annual audits, those vendor audits, is mandated as well. And so summing all that up, cloud-based FDA-regulated IT systems have to be established and maintained at compliance levels equal to internally hosted systems. And as you'll see, this has already been done by Salesforce and has been proven successful during multiple audits by different regulatory authorities as well. So where do we start? So establishing a solid foundation, that's really key for any regulated system. And with Salesforce, it's no different. Leveraging the activities already discussed and establishing that robust SLA backed up by those vendor audits is the first part of that foundation. The standard platform qualification is the next part. And with Salesforce, the core system configuration and the baseline for each release is qualified and validated utilizing the creation of an internal release specification validation plan, a release-specific validation plan, I should say. The plan refers to the use of Salesforce's change control, administration, and maintenance SOPs. It talks about the system requirements for the release, that specific release, and they're established and added to the previous requirements versions each release. The baseline configuration is then performed. IQ and OQ protocols get established and executed based on those new requirements, and all requirements for the release and tests for previous releases are performed to ensure no adverse effect is seen from the introduction of the new functionality. And these release notes are produced upon successful completion of all of that to inform the customer of the impending release functionality additions and the modifications, so they can prepare for that impending release. So this diagram hopefully explains a bit more clearly that process and the relationship between the efforts that Salesforce undertakes to produce those release notes and the activities that you as the customers will be ensuring have been established when you're performing that vendor audit and creating those SLAs. And the resultant release notes form part of your own customer validation package. So this piece is the core, the platform core compliance piece. The next slide, this is the customer-specific cloud compliance elements. And the customer-specific validation plan refers to the establishment of that SLA and of those vendor audits to leverage those pieces and details that you can take from Salesforce's own work they've already done. And it also details the plan to establish a compliance state for the customer's own specific configuration. So you want to include the addition of GxP applicable applications and functionality you want to put on top of the platform. And customer-specific configuration management and change control processes are of course established to manage the changes for each release and any unscheduled changes. You have customer-specific user and functional requirements. They get established and added to any previous requirements versions in the release notes that you have as well. Perform risk assessments on those requirements in the release notes to drive the level of testing rigor and the regression testing needs you may have from the changes that are coming through. Then you perform your own specific configuration. And IQ is performed on that configuration to simply verify that the configurations on top of the standard platform have been done accordingly. And then the OQ and the PQ get performed utilizing the established protocols and executed based on your own specific customer requirements as well as the release notes per the inherent risk from those requirements, along with any regression testing that is necessary or potentially necessary. Of course, traceability is maintained throughout, and summary reports are used to release the system at the end in the same way as regular systems. But what's important with the cloud, of course, you have to maintain that qualified state. So we can implement, you can qualify and validate, have it compliant. But how do you keep it compliant? Well, maintaining compliance is a key and critical element to using Salesforce and any other cloud system. And establishing and maintaining that compliance, they're two sides of the same coin, really. And due to its very nature, obviously, Salesforce and the Salesforce Cloud is updated on a regularly scheduled basis. They have the spring, summer, and winter releases. And for each of the releases, they do release those notes, as we just discussed. And there are always issues ahead of production release. They're always issued ahead of production release to allow customers to analyze them in time to create and prepare their own internal scripts. But not just for the new release. Of course, you want to regression test potentially anything that may be affected as well. So Salesforce, as well as that whole piece that you're going to do and they've already done, they're also automatically executing risk mitigation regression tests, numbering in literally hundreds of thousands on the lines of code for all of the scheduled releases and patches. For bug fixes, it's important to follow procedures established during your initial validation, perform assessments on the changes, follow your change control process, and regression test anything that's potentially affected accordingly. And as you'll see in the next few slides, as part of the the services that USDM provide, we have a Validation Accelerator Pack subscription. We provide those scripts for you for all the scheduled changes, and of course can provide services for all the other changes, including the patches and any emergency changes. And risk is therefore, extremely low for the end user. I want to just highlight a few use case examples I've seen through personal use of and validating Salesforce in the past. Sample management functionality, of course, is a big one. Mobile sample distribution and signature capture, both live and offline. Delayed synchronization with Salesforce. When you're taking samples and handing out samples to licensed practitioners, you could be in the bowels of a hospital and you need that offline functionality. So I validated those systems. Case management, patient details and potential adverse events, assigning those, prioritizing those. All of these, of course, are heavily regulated. There's great complaint management tools, quality management systems, 123 compliance being one of those. That's an add-on to the platform of Salesforce. ServiceMax provides field-based service management services for med device companies. And of course, UDI Connect, unique device and good ID data tracking and management. So there's a multitude of applications already out there, and there are others as well that you can start taking advantage of the power that this platform really affords you. So how do we save money with doing all this? USDM's has been in business and creating validation accelerator packs for over 10 years. They're application specific. They do provide best practice frameworks. They assure that level of compliance you need, and they really minimize the cost of ownership, and I'll show you why in a slide or two. And we can take advantage of Salesforce. We can help you take advantage of Salesforce to meet those regulations using these accelerated packs. So the specific Salesforce Validation Accelerator Pack contains a number of items to reduce that cost beyond GAMP5. So it's all based on GAMP5 methodologies. Accelerates that validation execution. It is, of course, specific to Salesforce, and it maintains that compliance once you've established it. But with the VAP, you get the Salesforce audit. Of course, once a year, there's a vendor audit that we perform and provide to you, so that takes that burden away. You don't have to do that piece. It comes, of course, with the validation plan and the risk assessments of all the requirements that we give as well. So they're all established. The platform is the same platform for everybody. So we have those requirements established, that risk assessment established. We can also provide, if you need it, administration and maintenance SOPs with change control and password policies, security policies. All of the scripts are given to you as well. From an IQ perspective, typically that's around the specific settings you have. Obviously, you don't have to do the hardware and the infrastructure qualifications, so that's what you're using your SLA and your vendor orders to establish. And then, of course, tracing everything together once you've executed those scripts and producing them final reports. And as part of the subscription service, you get that 3 times a year for all of the updates that come through from Salesforce. We've actually just been through the latest release and analyzing what that means to customers from the validation perspective. So finally, I want to go through a real quick case study that I did relating to development of a new solution based on Salesforce used by the field sales department for compliant sample management processes to replace an existing solution they had. And sample management functionality within Salesforce has to comply with not only Part 11, but also Part 203 PDMA regulations. So both the sample management functionality and the associated interfaces have to be validated as they're added to the underlying, already qualified Salesforce platform. Management of the changes and maintenance of the validated state of the system included within the standard change control processes. Communication and system administration processes have to be verified as in place, all done by that robust SLA. Changes brought about by the introduction of the new functionality for the sample management were covered by the company's internal policies for change control, which are already established, and included regression tests on a regular basis as well as validation configuration management processes to ensure that they weren't, when they put this new functionality in, they weren't adversely affecting any existing functionality. Of course, for the scheduled releases and the bug fixes, regression testing was done according to procedure that was established up front to make sure the underlying platform and of course the new sample management functionality qualification and maintenance was carried out appropriately and according to a regular scheduled basis, using those scripts that were initially developed, and of course the new release notes that come out every 4 months. The project did also include development of mobile on the iOS platform, iPhones and iPads, that does support that sample distribution process, including e-signature capture elements as well. And all of this was validated according to the regulations that it need to be according to GAMP 5 as well. The system synced directly with Salesforce and was offline, so there were multiple interfaces that we had to qualify and validate, and supporting that sample tracking between SAP and Salesforce and third-party vendors that fulfilled the orders and shipped the samples directly to the practitioners. So those interfaces, of course, also existed between Salesforce.com and reporting systems via data integration software. So the whole package was qualified and validated and still is and is maintained now. So that gives you one example of a validation case study. So it's important to establish that initial platform validation. Once that's done, you can add on GxP applications to the system very easily, qualifying the application itself and, of course, the pieces that may touch that are already in your qualified platform. So with all that said, I'm going to quickly hand back over to Kim, and she's going to go over any questions and some closing remarks as well.
Thank you, David. And yes, well, it does look like we have quite a few questions. I'm going to try to get through as many as we can in the next few minutes. But feel free if you have thought of something now that we've wrapped up the presentation that you'd like to also pose to the team, and I'll try to get to it. If we aren't able to address all the questions, we will have some additional dialogue and follow-up afterwards. But first question, once the core platform is validated, do I have to redo that validation for each new GxP application I want to add? David, that's probably for you.
Sure. Yeah. That question probably came in at the beginning. I think clearly you validate that initial platform, and as you add pieces to it, you're not going to want to and don't need to revalidate the entire platform. But any touch points according to your configuration management process and risk assessment, you'll want to make sure haven't been affected, as well as, of course, validating that new piece of functionality. So you wouldn't want to redo the whole thing. I mean, it's not saying you couldn't, but that would be a waste of time. You want to do it in a risk-based perspective.
Okay. Next one. The security model for Salesforce.com is incredibly flexible and consists of many elements: profiles, roles, objective level security, field level security. While this is great from a business perspective, it creates some very significant challenges and burdens from a validation perspective. Are there best practices for security when using Salesforce.com for validated processes? I think we kind of handled some of those in the discussion too, but anything you might want to add on top of that, David?
Sure. I think the best way to put those details down is going to get we can email that specific answer back. But yeah, there are best practices, and Salesforce does have best practices. I'm sure Polly can probably pull them out for us as well. When using those validated processes, we can establish and demonstrate that they have those in place. And that one of the slides did talk to some of that as well. So we'll provide that over to the audience as well to specifically answer those. And any other questions that kind of a bit more detailed than we have time for right now.
Okay. Next question. What regulation requires annual audits of suppliers? Do we know what regulation actually mandates that you have to do a vendor audit?
I have to look exactly specifically which one, the number. I think it's maybe in QSR, maybe in 820. I'm going to look at it shortly, but if you can bear with me there, I saw the question come in there. I can provide that specific reference to that. I think it's an 820, the quality system regulation, and I'll pull out the specific number for it. I can't recall it right now.
Okay. There are multiple scheduled releases throughout the year, and you don't have the option of whether to upgrade or not. When a new release comes out, is it recommended that you regression test all of your validated functionality, or do you need to do a full validation, or how much do you need to do? And is there a documented process to prove the release hasn't impacted your validated state?
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's down to your own specific. I've seen customers do it both ways. I've seen customers do regression testing very, very often, but you obviously using automated tools that does speed that process up, significantly. I would say it's probably better to do an assessment on the specific release notes, and of course the patches as they come through, to analyze. If you establish that process up front, analyze those processes to make sure you're not impacting, and document your rationale for why you think that. Using your CI, your configuration items matrix, you can actually determine what elements may be touched and may not be touched, and you can regression test those pieces. Again, if you're using automated PQ scripts, that's a really quick process as well. So it's the establishment of those processes up front which can determine your approach to that. If you don't want to do that, you want to regression test everything, and it's quicker for you to do that, then that's fine, but it may be a bit more burdensome to do that.
Okay. Next question, do you validate Salesforce 1 and mobile apps 2?
Yes. Mobile applications are based on the Salesforce platform, and Salesforce 1, yeah, we can put that in. Not specifically as part of the VAP currently, but we have validated the mobile applications for Salesforce platform, and we have some VAPs around different mobile applications that we use too already.
Great. Next, what validation activities, qualification/validation is performed on the core system below the hypervisor? I don't know if I know what that means. Hopefully one of you does.
I don't either.
All right. Whoever posed that question will have to.
Yeah.
Okay. Would the Accelerator pack be targeted more for standard out-of-the-box applications that are built on Salesforce.com, or prepackaged solutions like Viva? What about highly customized, lots of code applications? So I guess the question would be, how do you use the validation Accelerator packages for some of maybe the partners we talked about earlier, or even something that's more custom developed?
Yeah, of course the VAP is going to take care of the core platform, and of course we do have VAPs, for 123 compliance and for Service Max and UDI Connect, things like that. So we have separate VAPs for those also. Now beyond that, if you're doing specific configuration and customization on top of that, of course they're going to be relating to your company and your own use cases and requirements. But we add those in to the requirements that we have in the VAP, and create those new scripts as necessary, or modify existing ones, because chances are we've seen those processes being used before, and tailor those just to your specific company. So the very nature of it is going to be specific to your own needs. So we can't anticipate all of those pieces in the VAP. So we do qualify that platform and then add in pieces that you need.
Great. A couple of questions in the chat that are very, very lengthy. I may, instead of trying to get through them all, follow up with some of these folks individually after the session. A couple other. How long does it, this is a good one. How long does it take to validate the Salesforce.com instance?
How long does it take to validate the core system?
That's, yes.
Obviously, that's a little bit dependent. If you're just talking about the core system and no other additions to it, That can take anywhere from 30 to 60 days to do. If you're adding in pieces to that, elements of customization, configurations, and use cases that are specific to your company, and of course on top of that, if you're putting in any of the other applications that we already have VAPs for, that would be speeded up. But anything customized would be added on top of that. So typically 30 to 60 days for core, and then things on top of that would be additional time that would be specific to that project.
Okay, I think we addressed a bit of this, but the companies have to validate if they use off-the-shelf applications without configuration.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
The companies have to validate if they use off-the-shelf applications and then parentheses without configuration. So I think we kind of talked about that already, but
yeah, you still want to validate the platform and pieces. If it's off the shelf, you still want to verify that you've installed it correctly. For example, there would be elements of IQ for that. There would be just a PQ for that. Obviously, take a risk-based approach to that. Look at the requirements that you have. Do an analysis. Determine if it's standard configuration, GAMP category 4, for example, then you're not looking at anything over and above that. And if it's low risk, then you can make that determination based on your own inherent risk as applicable to your business.
Okay. Are patches pushed directly to the production environment, or the customers have access to a QA/validation environment to test changes before being pushed to production?
I believe they are pushed directly to the production environment. The releases aren't. I think the patches are. So you would have to do. You do get informed of what they are and what they affect. So you can regression test those, especially with your automated testing. If you have that, or even if you don't, you can regression test those pretty quickly. A lot of the time, I've seen multiple patches coming through all the time, but you can determine very quickly in your change control process, and you can even have an open change control for multiple patches. They have zero effect on anything you have already, and of course they've already been. Again, it goes back to the SLA. They've already been tested as not affecting the specific configurations, and typically they don't affect anything you have internally from your own configurations too. But when you get those patches, you'll have to look at them, do that quick assessment, and make that determination whether you want to regression test anything or not.
Okay. Maybe I'll take one more. I know we're running over time, but this may be more for a Salesforce question. Does Salesforce have equivalent record keeping for change, kappa, as well as qualification of infrastructure that would be expected for an on-premise system?
I can probably take that one as well.
Okay.
Yes, we do. The processes they have. The thing you've got to remember with Salesforce, it's being used by multiple different companies and different verticals across the globe, and the processes they've established are going to be adhering to HIPAA and FDA and EU regulations, as well as global regulations too. So there are probably more robust controls over the use of Salesforce in those areas than you will typically see on a hosted system. That's the benefit of this, and of course, going back to the security, you have that multi-tenant, the segregation of data across multiple different platforms and servers and hosted centers. So access to that data becomes a moot point when you only get a piece of it. You don't get the whole thing, which is not the same if you manage to breach into a hosted data center. You're going to get everything. But with Salesforce and the way the cloud works, you actually don't get the data you need. You get a small piece of it, and it's encrypted anyway. So you don't get the full picture, even encrypted or not. So it's actually more secure in that way. And the processes are established and have been audited multiple times to show that's in place.
Perfect. Well, thank you, David. you see here, you can contact us. Obviously, you can email us, usdm@usdm.com. Feel free to reach out through Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. For those of you who didn't get your questions answered, I was trying to go through them as quickly as possible, but we are happy to follow up afterwards to make sure that you get all of the information that you need. Thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to talking to you again very soon. Bye-bye.